Good afternoon, Villa. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, back in my hometown. It's been over a year since I've been home, so it's really an honor to be here. Never been able to be here at Villa to be able to speak with any of the students. I know you guys may know my mother, Linda Appleby, but today you get her daughter. So it's nice to meet you all. As you heard, I'm a Buffalo native. I am born and raised here in Buffalo. Been living here until the point where I was 16. But before that, could just start right at the top. I started out in my mom's church choir, where she directed the choir, and basically we didn't have a choice. We're going to be in the church choir because mom's in charge. So we were in the church choir, but she knew that we had a gift of music early on. Just being able to hear tones is all you pretty much need to be able to sing in the choir, or just have a willingness to learn and go from there. So in the choir, I was in the choir for childhood all the way until I left for high school. Until I graduated high school, which I graduated at 17 years old. So throughout that entire experience, I guess I would say I'm a vocalist first. I know you can't tell, it's been a tired voice, forgive me. But started out vocalist, but something about just being in front of the microphone with just you and your voice is just takes a lot of courage, and I really found some type of peace in an instrument being with me as I worked, and I kind of navigated my way through what I love, because didn't really want what I love to have to be hindered because of any other insecurities I might have. So I kind of want to talk to you all today about just kind of working through that in following your craft, following your passion, and allowing yourself to feel whatever you feel along the way as you work your way to your goals. So after I was in the church choir for several years, I realized maybe around 5th grade, I wanted to try an instrument because I wanted to do music, but singing just seemed a little bit intimidating. So I picked up guitar. I would say I gave these instruments attempts. I tried several instruments before I found the bass. Found violin, guitar, piano, even involved myself in multiple extracurricular activities thanks to my parents just being eclectic, artistic people, able to do things like African dance and theater, all which incorporate music, and really just from a early age really just helped me. I guess I took for granted. I didn't realize how just important arts were to just development of human being, and how many people may not even realize that. So I'm just thankful just starting there. But as I started some instruments, I gave everything a try. I really, when you're young, you definitely, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I like to think that you're like a little bit more willing to try stuff. You're not as afraid to not be amazing at something the first try. And so I did experiment. I did give a good go for several years. I would say I got fairly proficient on violin. Guitar, I loved it, but as hard as I practiced, it was still difficult for me. Piano, my mom, as a pianist, as you may or may not know, she inspired me, and my sister also took piano lessons, so I actually wanted to play piano. But for the fact that my mother was a full-time music teacher, her schedule didn't allow for that, and my dad also is a musician who was pretty proficient in the Buffalo music scene. His name's Rodney Appleby. He's a bassist, vocalist, and just an all-around entertainer, and has been self-employed since I was born, so also got to kind of witness the way that art can be navigated in 2 different types of lifestyles, and just to see that you can do art for your full time. And I don't know, I hear a lot of people kind of assume that being an artist means you have to be a starving artist or this or that, but if you're doing what you love and you're happy, you're never starving, in my opinion. So fast forward, mom kind of didn't have much time to teach me, so I was like, well, Dad, you're home. He gigged at nights and was pretty much around during the day. Played guitar, bass, vocals, so I asked him, hey, Dad, can you show me some guitar? Had fun playing that, But there was one time he had a summer camp. My dad also would hold a music camp for students sometimes, and it was a youth camp for just young instrumentalists that maybe never played an instrument or maybe have just gotten started, and just an opportunity to play with other young people. And there was no bass players there. There was several guitar players, but no bass players. And my dad was like, "Well, you can play guitar, so maybe you can just try to just try it out." I tried it out, and I immediately fell in love. I was like, "Well, this makes way more sense for my fingers. I have awkwardly long fingers for a girl, but I actually have web fingers a little bit too, so it kind of wasn't that proficient for piano, but actually worked out great for bass." Um, just to say that you can try trial and error a few different things before you might find what it is that works for you, based on how you function, based on the way that your body works, the way that your mind works, all of that. So once I found bass, it was pretty much a wrap. From that point, I was enamored with it. I was immersed with it. I find that it's kind of easy when we're young to just dive into things and be submerged and to be interested in things. And pardon me, I hope that you guys find that passion, or have at least already found that passion. And if you don't, just continue to remember the excitement you had as a child and carry at least that aspect with you as you're carrying out your passions, because I don't know, that's the one thing that's definitely going to push you, because I don't know, as you get older, sometimes you may get harder on yourself, the way that you judge yourself, the way that you're getting things accomplished. But when you're young, you kind of don't have that as hard. So just keep the passion about the fact that it's fun to be learning, whether you're good at it or bad at it, because that's your own judgment. So my dad is an amazing bass player, phenomenal, and my mom has an amazing history, legacy of her own. And talk to you very candidly, I was very much always known as Rodney Appleby or Linda Appleby's daughter, and which was a blessing because they're beautiful people. But to try to learn to find my own voice was definitely something that I had to learn how to do. Being a woman on a male-dominated instrument, also being a woman in a male-dominated industry and world, that's not any shade to the male counterparts. I respect our males, but it's just the way that things have unfolded over the years, long-standing history being that way. And with all those things in place, the love I had for music just was able to push me through. Because to be quite honest, I always had been a pretty shy person. I don't know if any of you can relate, but it's interesting trying to do something that is meant to be a performance when you're not necessarily a person that is extroverted as people might assume. So working through all that was interesting. Through high school, I just really enamored myself in the music. I was able to get accepted into performing arts, Buffalo Academy for Visual and Performing Arts in 2001. And that was an amazing experience. It's our only art school here in Buffalo, New York, so it was the only place for me personally. I was never strong academically, but always was strong performance-wise. Everybody has different strengths, and I had to just work with mine. It was not academics, it was performance, but it still was able to get me into the school. And I didn't even know how to sight read music at the time. I learned how to do that basically day one. I remember we had jazz band and C-Jam Blues. I don't know if you guys might know that song. It's a very simple blues song. And I was bombing it. I was had no clue how to read music, and it was just day one, and I was like, wow. All right, well, let's figure this out. Just again, just kind of areas of confidence to try to work through, and trying to learn how to just show up again, just come back in tomorrow and just do your best. And through that experience, I was able to be blessed with some really amazing jazz band teachers and vocal teachers, and I was in the choirs, I was in the orchestra, because I've still played violin through high school. I was in the jazz bands, and I was in as many musicals as I could be in, just because I just loved to be on theater. It was just a fun way to kind of get out of character and try to get loose. So even if, I don't know, just a sidebar, maybe you guys would have fun participating in any theater musical things. It really expands just your approach to music. It's not always just about like, oh, what's it like to go play out with some artist that's out there? Because to get to that point, you have to have a very wide umbrella of knowledge of music, a very wide umbrella of experience with different music, and a very wide umbrella of confidence with different styles of music, which only can come with time and real-time application and sharing with people that are better than you, which also requires you to put your ego to the side and realize, and don't get so down on yourself if like, oh, they're so much better than me. There's always going to be that, you know, you just have to take that as inspiration and what can I learn from them and what can I learn about how I feel in that moment and how can I still move past that. So through high school, I was, again, still very good with extracurricular activities. I was better this time with my grades, but I was not going to get into Juilliard, or I could have gotten to Berkeley, but something about me did not really desire to go to college. And much respect to everybody here that has gone to college. It was just not my personal calling. But I did get my schooling in music through the Marine Corps. So I auditioned for the Marine Corps band when I was 16 years old and actually earned an audition score, which was equivalent to a enlisted officer, which basically allowed me to be able to pick my duty stations, which is pretty much very unheard of in the military because, I mean, the whole idea is do what we tell you. So it was just a little confidence booster to say, like, okay, maybe, you know, this is really good because I, in my mind, considered Marine Corps musicians to be pretty much top of the line of just knowing their craft in terms of just well-roundedness of it all. Actually, I'm going to go backwards because I sang in the church choir, but I didn't play bass in church a lot until I had maybe sophomore, junior year. And I don't know if any of you play in church, have gone to church and have listened to different church musicians, but that is an entire different level of musicality, of connection to music, of things that seem to be unteachable, and things that are extremely magical in the music's ability to be expressed and shared. So it's very, for me, I was just like very intimidated, but I would go to so many church sheds as much as possible. And I would just go and just let it all hang out. It's a place where a lot of musicians, they are gonna just go hard, and it's a place where you can mess up, you can, you know, sound crazy, but at the same time, you actually have a little bit of like driving you to like not sound bad, like you really wanna go for it. And just to have that type of push was also something that really helped me. Outside of the schooling, performing arts was amazing, taught me music theory. I did ear training. And honestly, if I hadn't learned music theory, I wouldn't have been able to get the score that I got to be able to get into the Marine Corps band. So it was really honestly the culmination of all these things. So moving forward, I get into the Marine Corps. I'm only 17 years old, and apparently I was the first woman to be a bass player in the Marine Corps, and on top of that, the first woman of color, African American woman to be a bass player in the Marine Corps, which was an extremely unexpected accomplishment that just kind of helped motivate me again along the way. Like, wow, okay, this is a whole nother accomplishment, and it means something so profound that I didn't even anticipate on setting out to do. So I say that to just kind of share the way that I recognize what I was doing was my journey. That you get a couple alignment reminders along your way that kind of show you that this is what you're supposed to be doing. And that was another one for me. So I served my time in the Marine Corps. I was stationed in New Orleans, which was amazing. I chose to be there because I know the music scene there was, unmatched. I mean, Buffalo in its heyday, and even still on today. But definitely, I know that Buffalo has a huge musical history, dating back to when jazz was more prevalent in the 90s, in New York City and a lot of the Rust Belt cities. But moving on, in New Orleans, I knew that that was a whole nother side of music that was infectious and I wanted to get a part of. So during my time in the Marine Corps, I was able to gig out on the side as much as I was possible. I met as many musicians as I could. I just got out as much as possible. How it feels when you're in college. That was basically my age of college. So you're just excited to just feel like, all right, this is my first time out on my own. Let me go see what I can do. Let me see what I can experience. And I just absorbed everything that I could. But coincidentally, when I was in boot camp, that was exactly when Katrina hit. And so by the time I got to New Orleans, it was 2006, and the Katrina hit in 2005. But even still, to me, coming from Buffalo, I didn't think that there was anything out of place until you kind of drive around to some of the more desolate areas. But the point is, the city kept the music thriving in that city, and it was just a really intensive learning experience. Just being there, seeing the way that those level of jazz musicians and even street musicians just had this level of just care, professionalism, and joy in what they do. And I just started to see, this is what music is. This is what it's about. There is no music without the passion. There is no music without the fellowship. There is no music without the connection. There is no music without, you dropping your guard down and letting yourself feel awkward or letting yourself feel powerful or whatever might be the case. So that was during my time when I said I was 17 to 21. So it was a very fresh time for me. But being in the Marine Corps, you definitely do feel a bit secluded from what else is going on in the world. So I kind of felt like I was in this military bubble. They say civilians, it's like military life and civilian life, it seems very like them and you. And I'm just like, well, what's going on in the world? I just felt like I was missing out. And I loved my time in the Marine Corps. I was definitely a person that, how do I want to word this? It was difficult, but the challenge was more of the fun part for me. I wanted to do it because it was hard. I wanted to do it to prove to myself that I was as strong as I thought. I was used to being the small one, the skinny one, the whatever, and I just liked to outperform, to just make people be surprised. And so I'm just letting you know that because I believe that mindset and that approach helped to also establish confidence in me in my adult life. It's a new level of confidence when you're 17 now to 21. You're still coming into your new self, and you're re-identifying yourself. You're rebuilding your confidence in who you want to become. You're trying to decide who you might want to become. But there's one thing that I always held with me was that I just truly believed that I could. I know that sounds so cliche, and I honestly don't even know why I felt these ways. I'm just sharing with you that was a belief that was within me that carried me through. And even if you don't believe it, like they say, fake it till you make it, you could tell yourself that. And the mind is plastic. It will take on to what you tell it, for better or for worse. So just tell yourself that you can, and you can. A lot of people will ask me, how did I get through boot camp? Wasn't it hard? How this, how that? And honestly, looking back, if I was to do it now, I don't know. But I know how I did it then, and it was because my mind was focused on what I was doing, not on the discomfort, not on anything but what it is that the goal is. And that pushed me through Marine Corps. And as a young girl in a that's even a more male dominated branch of, I mean, the armed forces, it's the most male dominated armed forces branch. And even within that, this is not me tooting my own horn, but I did outperform a lot of the males, um, from shooting ranges to physical fitness tests. Just as a reminder to myself, that like you don't even know how far you can go. You don't even know how hard you can push yourself until, now this might not, this might be healthy as a Marine Corps mentality, but until you fall out, like you don't know. But you don't have to go that far. I did learn how to put that into balance as a as a more healthy human being. But the point is, you can definitely do way more than you think you can. By the time that you think you're going to give up, you're not even about to catch your second wind. Um, there's been gigs I've been on where I'm pushing through the first hour, I'm pushing through the second hour, and by the time the third hour is done, I'm like, I'm just now warming up. Like, we need to, like, let's go. So just sticking with it, whatever it is, if it's something that you really do desire to accomplish, just just push a little bit, like a little bit more than you think you can, because that'll help to show you, one, to prove to yourself that you can do it. And the more times you prove to yourself you can do it, that, in my mind, is what builds confidence. It lets you know that you're not just a fluke. Like, oh, that wasn't just a lucky day. I didn't just have a good gig that day. Like, this is where I'm at, and this is what I can continue to provide. Um, I know being out in the gigs now, they basically pay you to be consistently on a level. So to be able to be consistently on a level requires not just your ability, but your confidence. And I'm just honing in on these things because I've recognized that these have been things that helped me, or I needed to recognize as I'm still continuing to be on this journey. So after the Marine Corps, like I said, I did feel a bit secluded. I got out at 21, still feeling very young, but still feeling like a little bit older at the same time than everybody else that was in school with me, because I was in college. I went to Buff State for a couple years. And I'm just a 21-year-old freshman, and I'm feeling so awkward and, out of place. No one knew that I played bass really in the city. A couple people did. Rashawn Odell, a bassist in the city, knew about me. An artist named Drea Denor knew about me. Walter Kemp knew about me. And these were my starts into the music scene in Buffalo after I was 21, after I came back from the Marine Corps. My first gig back was at church with Walter Kemp, and that was consistent until I moved to California. I still thank you for that, because not only was that a way for me to get back into the music scene, I met a lot of other musicians through him. And it's like I said, playing in church is just an experience where you really have to just be in tune. You have to move with the flow. You have to be present. And you have to connect with what's going on. And in my mind, that's the heart and soul of what music is. So I'll kind of try to now explain to you how I went from being in the Marine Corps to coming to Buffalo to having no gigs to having one church gig to being on tour with Nick Jonas and Lizzo and Willow Smith, CeeLo Green. I'll give you the full long list. But so as I just continued to work in the music scene in Buffalo, it was just basically word of mouth. Some musicians would hear about me. And also my dad being a musician in the music scene, he was very well respected and trusted. So there would be a few times when if they needed a bass player, they say, hey, I can't do it, but you should check my daughter out. And they're like, who is this girl? Like, she's 21. I don't know her at all. It's like, but they will give me a try. And actually, I missed a good chunk. But when I was in high school, I was actually gigging out in the clubs with a very top 40 cover band funk music, just all awesome, awesome stuff to play. And honestly, some of the most influential things to learn as an electric bassist and just as a funk lover being from Buffalo, New York. We played Rick James, we played Earth, Wind and Fire, we played Prince, we played the Gap Band, we played Michael Jackson. I'm talking Heartbreak Hotel, and I'm 16 years old. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that song, but it's a pretty good song to play live, and that was just the type of things that I was able to be a part of, and we would have, long, long, long rehearsals with a 10-piece horn band and everything else, but it was chump change, but that's not the point. The point was the experience for me. The point was the repetition with the music. The point was the familiarity, being introduced to this music and really digging into it and falling in love with it. I just personally fell in love with funk. I was obsessed with like the OJs and Stevie Wonder and Prince in high school. So random, but I guess that's probably just the musicianness in me. But so yeah, I just wanted to let you know that happened. So flash forward back to Buffalo. Word of mouth's getting around. People are asking me to gig, and I'm just starting to gig more and more and more. I start to meet a couple other artists that just eventually allow my name to be in the circuit. So within two years or so, I would say that I had started to build a network within the city, which was keeping me employed. I did teach at a music school. I had a couple side-end jobs, but I always had made the agreement to myself. I remember when I said when I was 16, I said I'd never want to do anything but music to make my way in this life, to provide for myself. Now, there's been a couple of times when I've had to deviate slightly, but I mean, for the majority, that has reigned true, and I'm thankful for that. But about 2 years in, I was able to consistently be working 3 gigs a week, 4 gigs a week, and then it just started to grow from there. Sometimes it'd be 5 gigs a week. If you're having sometimes you're having a really amazing week, you might have 3 gigs in a day. I mean, Buffalo is buzzing like that, where if you are talented and if you are professional about what you do, you will get called, you will get work, because we want that and we need that here. So if that's your desire, do not be shy to think that you won't be able to, work here, because you will. This city loves music. This city loves the arts. This city loves to support, and this city loves talent, and this city loves passion. So if you provide those things to the city will give back to you. So it was about 2015. So mind you, I got out of the Marine Corps in 2009. So at this point, it had been about 4 years of me gigging around Buffalo. And at this point, I have kind of, like I said, got up to maybe 4 or 5 gigs a week pretty consistently, and had been on a tour with an artist named David Miller and the Other Sinners. During this time when I was on tour, we were just on a bus, a good old bus tour, Sprinter van, going to Airbnbs, and we thought that was glorious. Okay, that's basically like nice. Like, oh my gosh, we're like, you're gonna pay for me to go to Airbnb to go, play music. I mean, I looked at it all as awesome. Looking back, I would probably look at it and be like, I was really out there like workhorsing it, but in the moment, it always felt just like another advancement. I felt like, I went from church, now I have a couple gigs, now I have a lot of gigs, now I'm on the road, now I'm playing in different towns, now I'm playing, and it was all surrounding cities, but it was just a consistent level of advancement, which also was just a reminder to me that I was on the right path. Like, just keep following this until you're guided elsewhere. So I'm on tour with David Miller and the Other Sinners. We have been doing shows every day for maybe 2 weeks. It's finally the end of the tour, and I'm on Instagram, kind of when Instagram just starting around, and someone sends me a message of a picture of a sea of people. It looks like they're backstage. It's like a sea of people. They're like, hey, I sent you an email. Check your email if you're interested in the gig. I'm like, okay, check my email. And they're like, we have an opportunity come up. We are looking for a bass player to play with an artist named Nick Jonas. I'm what? So, like, this is not real. Apparently, they had been looking for, they specifically wanted to have a woman on bass and they wanted a woman on guitar. And they had been looking all over LA, holding auditions, talking to different musical directors, getting their recommendations, and nobody was fitting the bill. The drummer was very particular. He's an amazing drummer by the name of Sed Mitchell. If you guys like to hear amazing drummers and get bored, I would suggest looking up his name and just enjoying. He's also an amazing bass player, but thank goodness he was particular about who he wanted, especially not to sound any different way, but I could be honest, not all women bring up the same fortitude as men when they play. And I say that with all due respect. And he just needed a certain, he needed it to hit. And he personally asked the MD if he could reach out to me. And the only reason they even ever found me is because my mom, in her unending videos of me every time I'm at a gig, she would just always be in the front taking a video, which put my name up at the top of the search when they looked for female bassist. So hashtags did work. Just that algorithm, just keep working it because, it seems like it's not realistic, but it does push things to come into people's sight of visions by one way or the other. So that was how that happened. Not within 24 hours, they sent me some material to audition. I get in that night from tour. I'm up until 4 a.m. trying to get the video together. I've never done anything like this in my life. I don't even know how to do a bass video. But I'm like, okay, I'm literally like playing the songs from the computer and playing it with my amp sounding over it like, so not how you do it. And long story short, after several back and forth, because they definitely wanted more showmanship, and I was not familiar with that side. If you knew me when I was younger, you would have seen me just sitting on my amp with my legs crossed and my head down. One, because I was a bit shy, but also I just like to fully feel and internalize the music. And for me, to think about performing takes my focus away from me just being able to feel. And for me, I always found that was more important, but I did have to step up to the plate with what was needed for me for the new jobs that I was getting. And also, I absolutely love when people can own a stage, dancing, giving you the energy while playing. So that was something I did want to work on. So I did my best to provide, and it worked out. Within 24 hours of that audition tape getting submitted, they flew me out to LA, where the band had already been in rehearsals for about a week, which is like 8-hour rehearsals already. So basically, I say that to say they had did a lot of work before I got there. And I felt very behind, and I felt very unprepared, but trusted that they asked me there for a reason. So I was going to do my best to step up to the plate. I studied the music. They flew me in. I didn't sleep. I'm studying the music, but slept just enough so that I wouldn't be too tired to rehearse. But, you just have to really, when you get the call, you just have to give it your all. That was a really corny bar, but but it's true. And so that happened, and it worked out. We were in 8-hour rehearsals for about a month. It was an amazing experience. I want to talk to you a little bit about how that went down and what it's like to rehearse in those type of experiences. You're in a huge rehearsal space where all of the management is right in front of you. And they don't know you, and they know a lot of amazing artists and musicians. And I recognize that me looking how I look and playing the instrument that I play, it would be assumed that I'm probably going to sound maybe not as strong as they would need. So I'm feeling that, I'm just feeling the the eyes. I'm feeling the, all right, what's going to happen? And I'm also feeling my newness to the material, my newness to these musicians. You play with all strangers, where I was familiar with playing with the same group of people pretty much. I mean, the musician scene in Buffalo, once you start to move around, you realize it's pretty tightly knit. And so everybody that I play with in Buffalo pretty much feels like family. Now I feel like I'm going out to play with strangers. Feels like, and it's doing the one thing that's probably one of the most intimate things with strangers. So it felt very one night standish to me, playing these gigs with these people I don't know. But you still have to find a way to create this energy, feel grounded enough to do your part, but still have enough energy to do a show, because it is a show. But they give you the tracks in advance. It's very helpful because they will give you the tracks with stems. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that is, but that's when you have your isolated part. A stem is just your instrument's part. So if you're playing the lead guitar, you will get an up mix of just your instrument's part, so you know exactly what to play. They do not, most times they do not give you sheet music. I can barely remember if that's ever happened. It's all learned by ear, and you can do your own homework of finding as many live performances of that artist that you have, so that you're familiar with how they work on stage and what type of role that you need to fill. The hours of rehearsal go for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. And you do that with just the band before the artist ever shows up for a good 3 weeks at least, which is actually awesome. But sometimes they show up and you don't know that they're going to come, and they're just like, all right, well, let's just see where we're at, so you do have to always be prepared for the unexpected. And it could be in those very moments that they could decide that for one reason or another they go for a change of heart. I don't say that to scare you. I say that to just know that things are always evolving. I have gone from several different gigs, and I worked with Nick Jonas for about a year and a half. We toured 6 months straight. Then we took a break for maybe a month. Then we did another 3 months straight. These are all on a tour bus, so it was all right, but, it was new for me. So you have bus rules, you have, different dynamics of management. It's a whole new gig. I was still trying to learn how to best fulfill my role. And then after that, we did the Jingle Ball tour, which is all planes for a month. And you would think that's easier, but it is gruesome, because you play your show in the evening, you get back to your hotel maybe around midnight, and then you have to be back in the lobby by 3 to catch a 4 a.m. flight, and then you do it all over again every single day. Every single day. So it gets to be taxing, but my training in the Marine Corps really helped me prepare for that, because I realized that I was basically doing what I did in the Marine Corps on the outside world. Because when I was in the Marine Corps band, we would travel from city to city. We did the Toys for Tots tour, which is a toy drive during the Christmas holidays that the Marines like to run. And we would go around doing these Christmas concerts all over the entire states. And a lot of times they would fly us out for certain things, because we had different ensembles within the Marine Band. So, yeah, it was very similar, and it was kind of crazy. I was like, wow, I'm pretty much doing the same thing, just on a different level. So it was very awesome training, especially from the hours, from, the early wake-ups for the flights, similar to the early wake-ups being in the Marine Corps. It was definitely a lot of parallels, which worked to my benefit. Because I was like, okay, I've been here before. I know I've been, at least this aspect of it, I've been here before. I know how to navigate with what I know to figure out what I don't know. Post the Nick Jonas gig, like I said, nothing is guaranteed, and and I don't know, in any, I don't know where it is guaranteed, but in my industry, these things change often. It could be for any number of different reasons. For this particular reason, they just wanted to go with a different look. It could be as small as that. They might want a different sound. You know, you never know. So they just wanted to go for a different look at the time. And I kind of felt like, well, what am I going to do? Like, come back to Buffalo? And I don't know. I just felt like I felt like a door had been opened for me, and I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity of being able to expand onto a wider scale. I felt like I had accomplished a lot in Buffalo, and I felt like I had pretty much not accomplished anything anywhere else. And I was like, well, what else? I think it's time for me. I'm also a Sagittarius. I just like to explore. I left, like I said, for the Marine Corps at 17, so I just felt like it was about time. It was another 4 years passed. I was like, it's time to go try some stuff. So I packed up my car. I drove out to LA, intending to stay there for a summer, and ended up staying. It was to tell you about how that first year was. That's be a whole nother long story. So I'm going to keep it about music for today. But just to let you know that that was another trying time, because for about an entire year, I did not have a music gig. I was working other jobs just to stay afloat for the time. And I eventually got asked to do my first gig, which was connected to me with the guitar player that I was on Nick Jonas with. She had been living in LA for a few years, so she had a pretty good network already going. It was another situation where it was like they wanted an all-woman band, which seemed to be popular, but nonetheless, I was happy to take the work. So I began touring with this artist named Nombe, and he is an indie artist. He was signed to Third Brain record labels. And we started touring around, doing a lot of music festivals. That was so fun. We did several music festivals, and it was just a whole nother different side of the music experience for me, from going to Nick Jonas's crazy teeny bopper fans to like more peer age group things that I would like to even be at, and I'm playing for that, and it was pretty cool. So again, even though maybe in one regard it might have looked like a step down, it was a little bit more in alignment with the type of music I wanted to be playing, so I looked at it as a step up. And then from there, again, it was very similar to how it was in Buffalo, just consistency, and I would go out as much as possible, just trying to explore the city, try to let people know that I was there, and just really, I just wanted to just hear music, honestly. Just my joy of wanting to enjoy music brought me to a lot of different places, jam sessions and stuff like that, and it sounds so old school, but I'll tell you, that's how I got the Lizzo gig, was by doing a jam session. And I did this jam session and met some amazing musicians. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with 1500 or Nothing, but they are a collaborative of musicians that are in Los Angeles that have worked with artists such as Nipsey Hussle, T.I. They're very big in the hip-hop community, but pretty much produce so much of their music. And they were hosting a jam, and of course I wanted to go, because pretty much if it's a jam in LA, the difference about LA and Buffalo in that regard is that everybody plays for somebody there. And so it was almost a way for me to get pushed back down, which I wanted. I wanted to look, don't think I'm that good, because I have so far to go. So to be put on a pedestal, for me, I didn't prefer it, because I didn't want to get complacent. And I wanted to be in an environment where I felt like everybody was better than me. And that's exactly what LA on the musical side of things. It's a different side. It's definitely more attention to detail, I would say, is the difference, because I can't say that there's no such thing as a better player. But they do have a different attention to detail. They do have a strong care for their professional work, because they know how easily they can be replaced. So, long story short, I was at the jam session, met an amazing keyboard player, And you know, this happens all the time. I mean, especially in LA, you meet somebody, oh, we're gonna stay in touch, or let's link, let's blah blah blah. Nothing ever happens, and it just is the nature of the beast. You know, it's just really a numbers game, is what I'm learning. Just planting seeds more and more places you can, and you don't even know when it'll come back. I went to this jam session when I first moved to LA. This was in 2017 and 2018 maybe, and I didn't get the call for the Lizzo gig until 2020. So that was how long ago that seed was planted. I didn't even know he remembered I was a human. I didn't even know he still had my number. I didn't know he was serious, any of those things. So I'm just letting you know, like, I know my story sounds pretty serendipitous, but I firmly believe that it was a result of me just following the breadcrumb trails of what was aligning for me, you know, and then things would just open up. I wish I could give you guys real other answers for that, but the things I know I did on my behalf was put the hours in. I studied different styles. I worked with different musicians. I, spent time alone with musicians. I spent time in different bands. I just really obsessed over my craft for at least a little while. At least a little while. You gotta go crazy for at least a little while. And from that point forward, it gives you a good enough foundation that you can continue to grow from. But I'm telling you, there's no way around that aspect. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, I didn't even really explain how that schooling went, but we were in the music school, which was 6 months of condensed 4 years, basically what you can get in college, into 6 months. We weren't allowed to take off our uniforms until 3 months in. If you got a certain score on your performance audition, it wasn't an audition for anything, but you just had basically like a benchmark, if you will. And if you didn't get a certain score, then you couldn't take off your uniform. You couldn't leave base. You couldn't even leave base no matter how good of a player you were until you had been there for at least 3 months and reached a certain score. And even if got the highest score possible, you still had to practice a minimum of 2 hours every day. Every day, every day, every day. Didn't matter. That was me, a person that, like, if you got a 3.0 or higher, that's basically like your staff level, like, we're not worried about you. And even those people had to practice no less than 2 hours a day. And we had a personal instructor, which was amazing, that would teach us our personal instrument as well as advanced music theory, as well as advanced music training. So all of that was so helpful to my application in playing, because then it put a language to what my ears already heard. I know many people have mixed opinions about needing to read music, and I'm not here to say if you need to or not. I'm just saying, for me, it just helped me to have a more holistic understanding of what it was that I felt like I innately could hear, but now I know what it means, and now I know I have a language for it. And not only do I understand it, but I can articulate it to my other musicians as we're performing together, because, you have to be on the same page. And being with different artists, I find that a lot of things that ties us up is our lack of ability to communicate the exact same thing that we all know what we're trying to get at. We just don't have the verbiage for it. So it helped me to have that aspect taken care of. But all right, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with Willow Smith, another serendipitous blessing of a situation of how I came across that gig. I met an amazing bass player by the name of Saya Gray, who is a woman in Toronto. I have family in Toronto, and we did a gig out there once, and was basically connected with a couple other young musicians, was the focus of the day. Met a young woman out there named Saya. At the time, she was just a young woman who looked up to me, and I thought she was just amazing. Flash forward to 5 years later, and she's playing for Daniel Caesar and just a beast of a player. She was not able to do the Willow Smith gig because she's from Canada, and referred me to do it. And that was how that came to pass. And then I was able to be the musical director for that for a whole month. It was my first time being musical director on that level, which basically required me to be able to, we have a talkback mic, and you basically, it's like being a choir director, but you tell them, hey, we're going to this change, or you give them prompts for if any special moments are about to happen, you give them prompts, you let them know what's going to kind of come up. Because a lot of times in the moment when you're on stage, all it takes is one second of you zoning out, and and you can miss something really important. Being on the stage, bigger scale, has definitely taught me the importance of maintaining presence in what you're doing, because the second it just takes a blink of an eye, and you can really like embarrass yourself in that whole stadium. And not only that, but forget the embarrassment part, you can just get fired. The point is stay paying attention while you're doing what you're doing. Just focus, focus, focus. So that was an amazing experience. It was got to come play for my mom, got to come to Toronto and play. That was awesome. Fast forward to Lizzo, like I said, that came from the jam session. The guy reached out to me, hey, are you free this day? We might be doing the Grammys with Lizzo. What? Like, didn't happen. That specific situation didn't happen. These situations, they come up so often, and they don't always, follow through. Another reason why it was just so wild to me that this one actually did, especially at the timing. So we rehearsed for a month straight with Lizzo and the band, an amazing group of women that I had been a fan of before I ever was in the band with them. So it was really awesome. It was really an honor. The musical director had made some amazing arrangements of the music, did not take it easy on us, which I was so happy for because finally gave us a chance to really like play. And we rehearsed, like I said, for a month, 12-hour days, and we got all the way out to the Houston rodeo, and we're in the production rehearsals, and it's the next day is the gig, and everything got canceled because of COVID. Everybody had to go home. And, from that point on, I mean, I don't know, 2020 was awkward for most people. But we didn't know if we would ever be able to do the gig again, I mean, musicians, I mean, they can hire new people. They might just be like, all right, that was for that time. Like, they could have a totally new vision. No shade against who they had. They might just totally change to move directions. But, 2021 comes around, and we start getting asked and all of the women were asked back. The musical director was asked back. And pretty much all of the crew actually got changed. So it was that much more an honor to have been able to be staying on the gig. So that's how the rest of the last year had been going down. It had been an amazing experience. We got to do several festivals once every month. Spoiler alert, we were going to do the Super Bowl, but COVID canceled it. So, yeah, those things happen, but we still have things coming up for the rest of the year. And I don't know, I guess that kind of sums me up to right now and where I'm at. I'd love to hear any questions anybody might have, or any insights you might want to share with me, or any information you want to get out of me. Now's the time. Thank you. Yes, you. Mhm. It's an amazing question. Um, I'll start by letting you know I'm type 1 diabetic. Oh, yeah, so you know this. Nick Jonas was type 1 diabetic. That was my first big gig. So that was another one of those serendipitous things where it was kind of like I felt in that environment, at least almost seeing how he operated helped me to learn how I could operate. I also am pretty big health nerd on my own, so I did my best to just bring everything because you can't trust what's going to be on the road. I mean, a lot of times by the time you're done working, everything's closed, or sometimes you're in a city where they just don't have healthy options, or you're just in a part of town where there's just it's not realistic. So, or the band, the food that they give the band is. I'm vegan as well, so it would be tough on me. So I'm just like I'm just making sure. There's one piece of advice I could give on the health, like physical health part. Just bring with what you need. Um, if it's protein bars, if it's I bring chlorophyll that's to help alkalize the body, or just lemons is fine. Um, any type of like mixes that you might something that's light to carry, but that will sustain you, like meal packet that you can put into a shake. Drink a lot of water, and do your best because your sleep schedule it is no sleep schedule. You could try to create one, but it's tricky. Um, so just give yourself the rest you need, and then recognize that if you're giving your body the nutrients it needs, the water it needs. If you're tired, like, I mean, if you haven't slept in like several days, obviously you can't go on. But I mean, like, if you're not at that point, like, you're gonna be tired a little bit, and you have to accept that has to come with you sometimes. But I've gotten less tired by, you don't have to push it. Like, I mean, just because you're out on tour doesn't mean you have to go out after. I mean, there's ways that you can always keep yourself safe from ever having to go one extreme or the other, because it's not really set up for any type of balanced lifestyle. You have to create it, but there is room for you to create it. You just have to be very intentional about it. As far as mental health goes, yeah, that's something that I definitely have struggled with from being in the Marine Corps. Just being a hyper attentive person. That has been something that I work on, but just finding people that you love that you can talk to. I'm thankful for my mother. I have a couple of close friends. I mean, this is whether you're an artist or just anybody. Have somebody that you can talk to. And I'm not going to get all preachy, but if you have a higher source that you believe in, if you don't have anybody, talk to yourself or talk to your higher source, or talk as if, what would you say if you were the friend that needed to hear it? And try to give yourself that advice. Sometimes writing letters works for me, but yeah, you just have to be very intentional, because you see what happens to so many artists, and I absolutely understand. I don't judge them at all, from Michael Jackson to Whitney Houston, from like, you can just see how it can go south, and it's easy. I mean, it's overwhelming, so if you're just intentional and you stay grounded, that's the best advice I can give. Any other questions? Yes, I'm sorry. I would say no, for the fact that I'm here, right? Um, but I would say that it has been something that I've had to work through. I just have had to really learn how to respect, first of all, because as a Marine, I was so disconnected from my body, from feeling like if I feel a way that I need to pay attention to it. I'm like, no, the point is that I get this done, right? That was the mindset I had then. Now that's why I said take that and then apply it into a healthy version of that, because that's not, you can't operate that way. So I just had to learn to get in touch with my body, and I had to learn how to feel it, and then I have to respect it. Like, some tapes I don't feel like doing it, and if it's something where I have the freedom to not do it, I won't. You're allowed to give yourself those days. And I also make sure that I hold true to my commitments, what I'm saying, because I want to remind myself that I can push through. I can let it all off as soon as I get home. So if you can just hold it when you have your commitments, and if you know that it is too much for you, you just have to be honest with yourself and give yourself a break when you need it, because more work will come. it's not the end of the world. If you have to tell them, look, I can't be there. If they can understand that, I just have to trust that something else is going to come through. I have been let off gigs all the time, not because I've lost a gig, just because things change, and I just always trust that something else is going to come, and then it does, because we're still here. Something else is going to come. So I would just say it has been a struggle, but it's just something that I've had to learn to listen to myself and respect myself a little bit more than I did before. And it's still something I'm learning how to do, but you know how you feel, and you know when you can go more. And like I said before, if sometimes you can go a lot more than you think you can, but you have to decide, is it time to push myself, or is it time for me to allow myself to feel peace in this moment? Like if you're at the gym, like sometimes I'm like, hey, today I want to really go hard. And sometimes I'm like, no, I just really want to like slowly connect with my movements and just like, you know, a different approach. So I'm just saying, like, choose your approach, intentionality, and listening to yourself, because you can't go more than the mind. You know, the mind is your number one strength or weakness. So respect that. Did I answer your question? Any other questions? I see you had your hand up. There's something going on at Buffalo Ironworks tomorrow. That's from 4 to like midnight, and I know it has a wide spread of different artists. The way I used to find stuff is just staying plugged in, staying in the art voice, and just being willing to explore different spots. And then you start to kind of get a name of some spots that are regular. I haven't been here in a few years to be able to tell you what is most prevalent now. So I'm maybe not the best person to ask. Maybe Walter Kemp can help you. Maybe Miss Appleby can help you. But I used to just go into the art voice, and I would look to see what day of the week, what's going on, and just explore. Because it doesn't always have to be necessarily live music. You can meet people that are in the arts just through other art events. You know what I'm saying? So don't exclude it to just music events, because musicians, we're going to be where the arts are. But specifically music events, I'd like to look in the art voice or speak to some musicians around here. They could help you, because I haven't been here in a couple of years, so that's the reason I can't give you a better answer. Yes, sir. That's a great question as well. Yeah, that's something I recognize me as a role as a bass player for one, because I always think about my job as that first. And I recognize how if the bass isn't comfortable, nobody's going to be comfortable. And I can't be waiting for somebody else to get comfortable for me to get comfortable. So I try to go in with the mindset of just try to really embody just just feeling solid. I know that wasn't an answer, but like I try to just really embody feeling solid. I really, as I play more, I really feel more of my body more. It used to just be like all in my head, but now I'm like, I feel how my whole body is speaking through the instrument and speaking out to the audience. So if I can at least have a good stance, that right there is going to allow me to feel that much more confident to just. And then obviously I spend time with my music so that hopefully muscle memory will take over for me, because the nerves will get there, and you can be practice, 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 practice. And like I said, there can be a split second where you lose focus for a second, but if you're good, nobody else notice, or it's at a point where it's not like the end of the world. And if it is the end of the world moment, it's live. What are you gonna do? You know? No point in sitting there feeling all crazy about it. Like, it is what it is. It's out there now. But I find that recovering fast, I learned that before I was on these big gigs, something that I learned early on. My dad made sure, because we would be practicing, and if I messed up and like it's a walking bass line, for example, and the metronome's going, and the meters are going, and the bars are going. I can't go back to that bar because I messed it up. We're here now. You're hearing the song now. Just recover. Just move. No one's sitting in that past but you. So just knowing that it's not the end of the world and doing my best to have muscle memory and then really trying to just feel like, no, it's my job to feel secure. Like, fake it. You're welcome. Any other questions? Anybody? I think if I bring Aaron up with me, we can maybe have a little. Does anybody want to jam with us? Are there any? I know there's several instrumentalists here. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. If there's no other questions, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. Villa, Mama, Walt.